Where do you see the future of print versus digital?
Broadly, I think I see all of those formats coexisting. We've seen the ebook market sort of grow, and it's sort of hit a pretty steady state for most of the publishers that I work with of, perhaps between 15 and 25%, depending on the type of publishing. Audio has again established itself really well, particularly in recent years, and again might be up to the same again for very audio first publishers, or perhaps 5 to 10% for smaller publishers. What's clear for that, though, is that there's a really strong print market that is continuing. Actually, over the last few years of the pandemic, despite disruption to physical retail, we've seen print book sales hold up really well. And I think that it shows that there's an audience for print. And I think what's interesting is the way that we're seeing that there's an audience for different formats, for different use cases and at different times. So when you're out and about on the move, it's absolutely tremendous that you've got audiobooks or ebooks always with you to listen to. On the other hand, at the weekend, I think there's a lot of evidence that people like to sort of sit back and enjoy a book as a break from screens. So I think all of these formats can coexist for publishers.
What opportunities do you think there are for publishers at the moment in the last 5 years, and what challenges are there, and how can you help your publishers to overcome these?
Well, I think the big story of the last 5 years has been audio. The audiobook market has been growing 20 to 30% a year on year over that period of time, which is extraordinary. Certainly, if you look at the ebook market, it's not growing at that rate, and the print market certainly isn't. So I think the audio growth story has been really exciting. And I think there's still a lot of opportunity. One of the things that I do is working with an audiobook startup called Zigzag. We have relationships with 36 publishers, largely here in the UK. And so through that, I've got a pretty good view of the marketplace. And it's terrific to see a broader range of material being made available in the audiobook format, but there are still really big gaps in it. It's really interesting to see how many sort of particularly 20th century classics aren't available in audio at all. It's really interesting to see sort of whole areas of publishing, particularly in non-fiction, where audiobooks haven't been done. So it feels like there's still a really significant opportunity for publishers to record more audio, and various people are trying to help them do that through innovations like AI reading and text to speech, or just bringing down the cost of human voice recording. So I think audio is straightforwardly an opportunity. I think the more nuanced question at the moment is about AI, and particularly large language models and how those are used by publishers. At the moment, I think there's a degree of concern and trepidation about this. A couple of weeks before we recorded this interview, the Society of Authors came out with its guidelines for AI, and they are quite correctly worried about what it means for authors and other creators. Is this actually going to take things away? Will the words that they put together be used as training data to make the algorithms smarter and better? And will all of this supplant a human creator in time? I think those are big and serious questions that the industry needs to talk about. At the same time, I can also see tremendous opportunity from AI. Within a publishing business, whether you're thinking of writing marketing copy or creating visual assets, there are huge opportunities for people to use AI to work smarter and faster. One of the constant things I've heard throughout my publishing career is that there's too much to do and too few people to do it. Yeah. So actually AI does have an opportunity there, but I think publishers have really got to think through how do they use it? How do they use it responsibly and in a way that works with the interests of individual creators?
And how do you think AI might be useful in your own consulting work?
Well, it's interesting. I did a strategy exercise for a client a few weeks ago, and we had gone through a research process over several weeks, talking to members of their team, talking to people elsewhere in their world about the next 5 to 10 years and what people thought would be coming up. And it was quite interesting that at the end of that exercise, I fed a series of prompts into ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT for its impression of their strategic environment. And of the 10 big factors that we'd identified, ChatGPT picked up on 7 of them. Now, I would like to think that the human work that we did was better informed, was more nuanced, and was therefore very useful. But certainly for myself, I think it's a terrific way of starting things off. Many writers, for example, talk about the difficulty of the blank screen or the blank sheet of paper in front of them. It's very difficult to start with something. Many of us find it easier to edit than to write from scratch. And I have certainly found in my own work that if I'm starting, say, a proposal document, which is often quite highly structured and templated, I can use ChatGPT to sort of give me an initial structure and some thoughts, which I will then edit and add to. And in that respect, I think it is making me more efficient. I don't think it's quite ready to take over from the advice that I give to clients. Let's hope not for a while yet.
Yeah. And you mentioned giving advice to hopeful publishers or people who are perhaps looking to move around in the industry. What advice do you give them? And what advice have you received that you found incredibly useful during your time in publishing?
Well, if I may, I'll answer those questions sort of the other way around. And I think in terms of the advice that I've had, I've been really lucky to work with tremendous people throughout my career in publishing. So, if I think of particularly bosses that I've had, James Henage at Ottakers, who is an extraordinarily charismatic leader, taught me a huge amount. My first boss in publishing, Tim Holman at Orbit, was just staggeringly focused on getting books right. And, no detail was beneath his attention. Everything had to be looked at really carefully. He had a staggering degree of attention to detail. And I think that's, I hope, something that I've taken a little of away. David Young, who I mentioned, staggeringly good on systems and people and running a business. Ursula Mackenzie, who I worked for after that, just absolute clarity in all of her communication. I don't think I ever came out of a conversation with her in any doubt as to what she thought about something or what she wanted me to do. Later at Hachette, Richard Kitson, my immediate boss, again, a real international focus, someone who had begun his own career in international sales. And so really understood book markets around the world, very generous with his time in explaining how they worked and how they were different to the UK. Tim Healy-Hutchinson, who was the group CEO, again, I learned a huge amount from in terms of his ability to deal with people, just his unflappable calm, I think, in everything, and just dealing with people in a very level way, I think I took a lot from. So I don't know if I've given you a specific piece of advice, but I think I've shown you a lot of the things that I've learned over the years from all of those people. And so now I'm obviously in a position where, occasionally I'm asked for advice. I do a lot of work with the stationers company, the livery company for publishing in the city. And one of the many things that Stationers does for good in the industry is funding a bursary scheme. And I have mentored some of those bursary recipients, who are typically people who are doing a master's degree in a publishing course or in a related area, and they're hoping to go on and make a career in publishing. And so a lot of the advice that I give them is to meet people and network and get as many different perspectives as possible. There is no one true publishing model that works. It's been quite interesting to me as a consultant coming out of Hachette after so long there and dealing with other publishers as clients or as business partners and seeing how different they are. Actually, that difference is very much to be celebrated. And if you don't see that yourself, you don't know the lessons that you can learn from it. So go and talk to as many people as possible. We're very lucky that this is quite a sociable and gregarious industry. There are lots of opportunities to meet people. The Society of Young Publishers is something that I never particularly needed in the early part of my publishing career, because I was lucky enough to come in from book selling at a later stage. But I know that for a lot of younger people who are sort of trying to get into publishing, the SYP does tremendously good work, allowing them to network, meet people, build their knowledge of the industry. So I think that's the number one piece of advice that I would give people. Go out, talk to as many people as possible, see as many different types of publisher as possible, and find the one that works for you. Because again, from large publishers to small ones, from UK focused ones to more international, from more print to more digital, there are so many permutations here. And if you are looking for a role in publishing, one of the most challenging things is figuring out which one of those is best for you. And you can only do that through talking to people.
And I understand you have spoken quite a lot at book fairs and conferences. What do you speak about, and why do you like speaking at those?
Well, typically I'm asked to talk about, my areas of professional expertise. So in the old days, everyone wanted to talk about ebooks. Strangely, that seems to have gone away, but at the moment, everybody wants to talk about audio. And I've just actually, in the last couple of weeks, been asked to talk for the first time about AI and its impact. So broadly speaking, whatever the particular content or technology trend is at that moment is often what I will speak about. The key thing I always feel in speaking is that there's a lot of technical detail in all of these subjects, and people in the book trade particularly are not always technical experts. They don't want to go and discuss the exact makeup of an EPUB file, or the bit rate that they should record their audio in, or I don't know, token limits in large language models. That's a point of detail that's far too great for them. But what people do want to understand is, what's the business impact of this? How might I use it? What are the risks that I should be aware of? And so the way that I see it a lot of the time talking is that my role is to take a quite complicated technical subject and explain it in a way that people can relate to. And the personal thing that I always give myself with speeches is there something practical that I can give people so that after this, they can go away and try something new and actually do it and see the results of it? Because I think you can listen to someone talk for half an hour or an hour, but actually, if you're able to go away and do something, then it's far more likely that it'll stick in your mind and that you might go on to do something with it. And why is it important to do that? Well, I think for me, I've been very lucky in some of the places that I've gone. So this year, for example, I went to Abu Dhabi for the book fair there for the first time. And for me, it's about learning. I think it's really important for all of us to sort of constantly learn new things. And going to a book fair, particularly overseas, meeting people there, talking to as many people as possible, and understanding the country or region you're in, how the book market operates there, that's absolutely priceless. So, for example, a few weeks ago in Abu Dhabi, I was talking to the largest producer of Arabic language podcasts, who are based in Lebanon. I also talked to a really big regional streaming platform who are the equivalent of Spotify or Storytel in the region. And you learn so much talking to these people. You learn the differences between those markets and your own. And, I think increasingly for publishers, the international opportunity is really significant, particularly with digital formats. You can go from being a UK publisher to selling basically almost everywhere around the world. And having that understanding of those markets and how they operate, what local tastes are, how those might differ from the ones that you know in your own home market, that to me is really important. And so again, I feel it is a real privilege and opportunity to have the chance to do those things.